Hey, how's it going, everybody? Marcos Villegas for Fight Up TV here in Los Angeles, being joined with Jim Lampley as we're going to talk about this card happening this weekend on DAZN pay-per-view, where Terrence Crawford is moving up to 154 pounds to challenge for the WBA title against Israel Madrimov. Amongst that as well, other boxing topics. Jim, this is a stacked card, man. I don't know if there's ever really been a card like this in the U.S., at least since the time I've covered this sport. You know, you've spent such a long time in the sport.
I don't know that I've ever seen a card that had so many stick-out fights on the undercard as this one does in the last few years. You know, it's impossible for me to go back, 25 years ago I saw X, Y, and Z. That doesn't come to my brain as willingly anymore as used to be the case in the past. But the bottom line is, yep, it's a terrific undercard, and yep, we're going to be looking at a handful of fighters here whom we'll be seeing going down the road in the future.
So looking at the main event, Terrence Crawford moving up from 147 pounds to 154 pounds, a new division. He's taken on a champion, a top contender. How do you see this fight? What's the biggest challenge you feel Madrimov poses to Terrence Crawford?
Well, Madrimov, and by the way, you say Madrimov. I started out saying Madrimov. Somebody corrected me to Madrimov.
It's Madrimov. Okay, there we go.
I'm not sure what's right. Maybe you can kind of split the difference, Madrimov. But at the end of the day, he is sturdy. He is brought up in the sport in that Eastern European instructional style, which has proven very effective for a lot of fighters. From his background, there's a comparison, maybe because he's from a stan, not Kazakhstan, but there's a comparison to Gennady Golovkin that's getting tossed around. Any comparison to Gennady Golovkin is clearly a big compliment, at least in my book. And I think that, you know, he's about his size and his strength and his technical capability here. And Crawford very intelligently realizes if he's going to convince the powers that be, in this case the Sheikh, and the number one dollar-for-dollar fighter in the world, Canelo Alvarez, that he's a logical and worthy opponent for a matchup with Canelo Alvarez, make more money than Terrence has made in his career up to this moment. This is a way to take a step toward doing that, beat a guy who is compared to Golovkin in terms of style and, to some degree, punching power.
Yeah, I've heard also that people make a comparison that he looks a lot like Golovkin. They call him like Golovkin's little brother, or like a baby Golovkin. But in terms of his style and fighting, you know, I think there's a distinct difference between him and Gennady Golovkin. But given that he's able to switch stances like Terrence Crawford, but you know, the thing with Terrence Crawford is his ring IQ. That's the thing that's always stand out against the other opponents. I don't know, how can Madrimov bridge that gap? Can he?
Well, I don't know, and that's part of, you know, what we're going to find out in the mystery of the fight. And yes, Crawford has always had amazing kinetic adaptability, changing fights on the fly to make it work in his favor, and we've seen that from the very first moment that he appeared on a top-rank undercard in Las Vegas as a sort of last-minute selected opponent for Breidis Prescott. Breidis Prescott was expected to be moving forward toward the contender position that ultimately belonged to Terrence Crawford after he technically undressed Breidis Prescott in a great performance.
Yeah, that was, I believe, after the Amir Khan knockout with Prescott coming into that fight against Crawford. When you look at it,
Prescott was supposed to get well. He didn't get well against Crawford.
No, a lot of opponents haven't gone well when they've gone against Terrence Crawford. Madrimov, can he win?
Well, I think, you know, look, you never want to say that somebody cannot win a fight. It's boxing, and strange things do happen. But I've never seen Terrence Crawford do anything but win. And I was a little bit out on a limb last year when a fair number of people described the Errol Spence fight as a pick'em fight going in. And I said to one prominent boxing writer, no, it's not a pick'em fight. That is a severe underestimation of who Crawford is and what he's already proven he can do. And I think that once the bell rings, Crawford's going to show you that it's not a pick 'em fight. And he did. And, maybe Spence would approach things differently if it were ever to happen again, but that was all Terence Crawford. His vengeful competitiveness, his focus on the main task, and his ability to close the show when he wants to close the show. That was a perfect demonstration of all the things that Terence Crawford can do.
Yeah, my big question in this fight is how is he going to react to the bigger weight class, to the
That's
the
his
bigger
big
weight
question,
guys?
too, I would hope.
How is he going to take those punches?
That is a lot of why we're here. He wants to fight Canelo. Canelo weighs 168. Canelo's been at 168 for quite a while. Terence weighs 147. Now he's moving up to 154. He's still 14 pounds short of the logical business target for this enterprise. And, probably has to hope that tomorrow night he can do something spectacular enough to help observers like us bridge that 14-pound gap and get to the point of saying, yeah, he's a legitimate opponent for Canelo Alvarez at 168 pounds. That's a difficult argument to mount. Terence Crawford has mounted and won a lot of difficult arguments in boxing.
If he struggles, do you think then that fight's dead with Canelo?
Well, Terence is a stubborn person. If he makes up his mind that he can do something and he wants to do it, it's going to be difficult to talk him out of it. So I would leave aside, if he struggles, to the possibility that he could struggle against an opponent about whom we don't know all that much, and if he does, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But if he doesn't struggle, if he has a spectacular performance, if he puts away a guy who outweighs him by 7 pounds coming in, then he's accomplished exactly what he came here to accomplish, and he's gotten one step closer to convincing the Sheikh and others in the sport with money that he's a logical, meaningful, marketable opponent for Canelo Alvarez, regardless of the difference between 147 pounds, where he now is, and 168, where he has to go to fight Canelo.
And then it's still another 14 pounds to get to
that's
Canelo.
Exactly right. And
that's just on the
nature
weigh-in
of the sport. That's the process of the sport. And Terence has mastered it up to this point. But every time you go from one division rung to another division rung, you're introducing unknowns, and he's introducing unknowns here.
When you look at the card overall, Jim, is there one fight outside of the main event that particularly sticks out to you?
They're all good. I mean, it's a competitive night. But my focus here, because of the job that I do for PPV.com, whatever I observe with regard to the undercard fights is sort of incidental and ephemeral on the way to the main Johnson. I'm really here to service PPV.com needs by providing some meaningful commentary on Terence Crawford during his journey here, because I've covered him in the past and have a connection to him from the past.
Now, one that I feel sticks out to me, and I think a lot of fans coming into this fight here in LA, is the Pitbull Cruz Rayo Valenzuela fight. I think because of their styles, they're going to clash. It's going to be like an all-action Mexican slugfest. And both of them have said that in interviews, like, hey, I'm going to go at this guy. And
we're in the right city for an
all-action
Mexican slugfest. We're in the right neighborhood for an all-action Mexican slugfest. So if it happens, that's a great thing. And we've seen that kind of thing on undercards before.
When you look at Pitbull Cruz and the rise he's had, I don't know, what do you make of where he's gone since that Gervonta Davis loss?
Well, spectators love a fighter who won't take no for an answer. And he demonstrated after that loss that he wasn't going to let that stop him from being a go-forward, aggressive, get out of my way, I'm here to prove my manhood is bigger than yours. He stepped forward, continuing to be that kind of fighter. So, yeah, he lost, and he lost on merit. But the way that he wins, if he keeps winning, is at the heart of his relationship to the fans, and that's what he's trying to polish again in this setup Saturday night.
Yeah, this card this Saturday night here in L.A. on DAZN pay-per-view. Canelo's, kind of looming over this event because of a potential money fight with Terrence Crawford. But he also just announced his fight as well against Edgar Berlanga. A lot of fans not happy with the opponent choice. They were hoping it would be David Benavidez or someone who the fans feel, because I've read through the comments, that deserves a fight, even though Berlanga is the mandatory for Canelo on the WBA. And I don't want to get into the mess of the sanctioning bodies, but just yeah, I know, right? But what's your perspective
not what
of
we should discuss today?
What's your perspective on Canelo fighting someone like a Berlanga at this point of his career?
Yeah, if he was fighting the Berlanga who was in the middle of the long knockout streak back at the beginning of his career, a year and a half, 2 years ago, that would look a little bit better. Since that time, Berlanga has been somewhat defrocked and shown to have some technical holes in his game. Technical holes in your game are not a good way to beat Canelo Alvarez. He's a brilliant technician.
Okay, regardless of the opponent, do you feel it's a good fight, that it's going to end up being a good fight?
No. I think Canelo's going to undress Berlanga.
Pretty cool.
But I could be being unfair to Berlanga just by virtue of the fact that I'm going so quickly to the logical conclusion here. But at the end of the day, I expect Canelo to technically undress him and make a strong statement that he's still Canelo Alvarez.
Now, given that Canelo chose this, what does that say about him at this point? I don't know.
I think he can do whatever he chooses.
But
that he has the position and the market power and the eminence as a fighter to call the dance the way he wants to call it. He knows doggone good and well what Crawford is all about here. He understands exactly what that is. So he has the power. Terrence has to do this. Terrence has to do that. He's not necessarily going to state it openly that way, but he'll make the implications clear that Crawford has to go up the rungs of the ladder in a certain way if he's actually going to get a fight against Canelo Alvarez.
David Benavidez moving up to 175 pounds, I think 2 days before, saying like, hey, I'm staying, or not staying, I'm campaigning in this new division. I'm not staying at 168 pounds. But, a lot of people there saying, hey, you should have fought David. You should have been fighting David for the past year.
A lot of people do say that. A lot of people will say that. Probably in the quiet of his shower in the hotel room, Canelo grumbles a little bit about that, feels a little bit dispossessed by that. But at the end of the day, he's still the one who says yes or no as to whether the fight takes place. So now, that's his satisfaction.
Is this a good precedent he's setting, Canelo? I know he's only doing what was done before with the other big players in the sport, but him being the figure that he is, him being the reigning undisputed champion, doesn't he have an obligation to just fight the top guys, the number one guys, because of that?
He's Canelo Alvarez. Functionally and in reality, he has no obligation. He has put himself at a different level and at the level from which he can call the dance. And if fans don't like what Canelo does, he's still Canelo Alvarez. He's still the one who determines, in this particular instance, who's going to make how much money for what kind of risk against a fighter like him. So as long as he's in that position of power, he doesn't have to care much about who criticizes him or why.
This little note here, Fred doing his job again. It's funny because I don't have my glasses, so it's blurry. So I don't know. I think that's meant for Jim. It's meant for me.
Yeah,
okay.
No. That's.
There we go. Jim Lampley co-hosts the exclusive viewer chat in real time throughout Saturdays. Terrence Crawford, Israel Madrimov, World Championship HD live stream at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, only on payperview.com.
PPV.com.
PPV.com.
Get on the PPV.com.
What a publicist Fred Sternberg is.
You can send me your own direct comments.
He's off camera right now, but this is why he's in the Hall of Fame. It's stuff like this. Now he just white balanced the camera.
Boxing Hall of Fame. I took him to his Boxing Hall of Fame induction, by the way. I walked him down the aisle, as it were, and gave him to the Boxing Hall of Fame. So, now he is permanently installed. What you see here is an artificial intelligence facsimile of Fred Sternberg, the real Fred Sternberg, is in Canastota in the Boxing Hall of Fame.
I was going to say, I thought you were going to say he's in his garage
I've been
somewhere.
in that same status for quite a while. I don't really exist. I'm in Canastota.
It's his I'm talking to Jim's avatar right now.
Yeah, that's right.
Hey, Jim, Shakur Stevenson's a free agent, but he's gotten a lot of criticism from fans about his style being boring. I know this is a thing that's popped up with fighters over the years. Just your perspective on that overall, the mantra when a fan says, hey, so-and-so fighter is not action-friendly, they're boring, they don't fight for the fans.
Every fighter in the world ultimately deals in some way, shape, or form with this same equation relative to fans. How much am I going to bend to the demand to be entertaining and therefore take risks that might not necessarily benefit me in the ring? And how much am I going to stick to the mantra that my trainer has taught me, the approach that my intelligent understanding of boxing has given to me and taught to me, and accept the fact that maybe somewhere I'm going to hear boos in the background or disapproval from some fans or get ripped for it on the web when I leave the ring. Shakur Stevenson is choosing to win. And so far, in choosing to win, he's getting less entertaining. People are talking about the fights that could make him entertaining. Tank Davis. Can you stay away from Tank Davis's left hand long enough to do all the things you've done to other opponents, or does logic say that at some point you're going to get caught? And then you'll be in a whole new situation. I think a fight with Tank Davis would be a great attraction, but nobody wants to see Shakur Stevenson go in and play chess with a tabby cat. They want to see him fight.
So has it been bad matchmaking then?
It's good matchmaking if he wins.
Well, for him.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, step one is win the fights.
Yeah.
And as Larry Merchant used to say on HBO with me all the time, and the manager's job at this point is to say, win this fight, look good in the next one. David Benavidez against Vozdik. Win this fight, look good in the next one. He did it. Mm-hmm. He accomplished the task. So now we'll see, whether fans penalize David Benavidez for not having maxed out on entertainment in the Alexander Vozdik fight. Hey, he had to make a choice, and the choice was do what I have to do tactically to win the fight.
So it's like there's 2 points to this argument. From the athlete's sense, it's like, hey, it's boxing. It's hit and don't get hit. I'm going to win by whatever means necessary. At the end of the day, it's me in there taking punches, taking risks, and debilitating my health potentially. And then on the other side, it's the fan argument, like, hey, well, I don't want to see this. I'm not paying for this. And it ends up hurting the fighter because then, they use that argument towards the big fights. And you hear fighters, I don't want to fight with this guy because he's just going to do this. When, like, I don't know, it's such a weird, like, dichotomy between the two, because, like, I feel like as a athlete, don't you want to challenge yourself to see if you could decipher that type of style?
In every other sport, yes. But
yeah, every other, yeah. What a weird sport, right?
This is boxing.
Oh,
this
my
is
goodness.
the one where you can get clipped on the chin and suddenly be in a situation that you did not want to be in. So in every other sport, yes. Here it's win. However, you have to do that and then deal with the public relations fallout next. Not everybody can be a social media genius. Floyd Mayweather, over the years, became a demonstrable social media genius by beguiling his fans into appreciating and loving the no-contact part of his game. He would go into the ring, pitch a shutout, nobody hit him. He had already established via his social media presence and his communication with his fan base that was what was going to happen, that in fact is what they should be rooting for, that they shouldn't be rooting for Floyd to go in and get hit and get into an all-out dogfight, because that's not what was in his best interest. So if they were going to be his fans and root for him, they had to root for him to succeed within his best interest, and that meant pitching no-contact shutouts. So he developed a fan base of people who appreciated him and liked him for that. They didn't appreciate or like anybody else for that. They only appreciated Floyd for that, because he was the one who was open enough from the beginning to say, this is what I'm going to do. Okay, if you want to watch somebody go in and risk his life in a high contact battle, that's somebody else. Buy somebody else's fight. You want to watch my fight, you're going to watch the tremendous skill, craft, technique, and command with which I'm going to say to the opponent, no contact. You're not touching me here tonight. And he did that over and over, and he sold it so effectively on social media that he got wildly wealthy doing it because he built up a base of fans who were willing to appreciate that, who were willing to walk away and say, aha, didn't get hit a single time. Most people don't want to see it. Mayweather built a fan base of people who loved it.
It's interesting. Maybe Shakur might need to take a page out of that marketing playbook.
Well, not everybody's a social media genius.
Yeah.
Not everybody can play the audience and cater to the
he's on
audience
Twitter
in
a lot.
that way. Who do you suppose? I mean, this gets pretty deep, but
yeah.
Who was watching Mayweather do that the whole time? Who was observing how Mayweather cultivated that audience and saw a path toward doing something that nobody thought he could do? Trump. If Mayweather is the first great social media genius in our society, Trump is the next. And he did exactly what Mayweather did, which is to sell negativity and make the audience appreciate negativity in such a way that they root for his negativity.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's what social media do.
Yeah, you know, it got to a point where when you watch, like part of it watching a Floyd Mayweather fight was you wanted to see if he would lose because he built so much on the undefeated record.
But you didn't expect to see him lose.
No.
You expected
there was always a wonder.
You expected to see him turn the competitive impulse of the sport on its ear round after round after round.
Yeah.
And he was very proud of it.
True. And,
unabashed.
The early part of his career, like when people bring up Floyd and that, I always tell them, well, you got to look at Floyd's early part of his career where he was a badass, where he was just wrecking people with combinations, and he was a very exciting fighter. And it wasn't until his hands started, wear and tear, where he had to switch up the style.
And also that he discovered if he used social media the right way, he could sell the tickets without contact.
Yeah.
Pretty smart. I give him a ton of credit. He built his own world. And it made him rich.
Yeah, he lives in Planet Mayweather and Planet Money. That's for sure. Jim, boxing's changing so much now, and we're seeing these big Riyadh season cards where it has all the promoters having a hand in it, and we're finally getting the competitive fights. How do you see the landscape like 5 years from now? Like, do you think they are going to be able to pull it off and bring everyone together, and were we having these consistent fights, or do you think at some point?
Well, I wouldn't have said that we would get to this point.
Yeah.
Okay, I would not have predicted, if you had asked me 3-4 years ago, are we going to be in a situation where a nucleus of fighters near the top of the sport are all angling to get at the same pile of money, that the pile of money is in Saudi Arabia, not in the United States, that the access to the money and the behavior by which you get it is going to be governed by people who don't come from boxing background, who come from entirely different backgrounds, some of them not even necessarily related to entertainment. These are all big changes, big turnarounds in our world. So for me to presume that I can predict to you what's going to happen next, no, I don't think I can. What I can predict that's meaningful for our enterprise here in these next several days is that Terence Crawford doesn't give ground easily. He is a full-on winner, has been from the first moment that he reached a logical platform in the sport, and he behaves with productive pride and arrogance in every way possible to make sure that he maintains his position. And as much respect as I want to pay to any Uzbek fighter who has gotten to where Madrimov has gotten, it's hard for me to imagine that person beats Terence Crawford, even with the weight advantage and the strength advantage that he's likely to have.
Father Time, though, Jim. We never know.
Father Time wins every fight.
Yes, he's what, 37 now? Crawford, I think?
He is.
Yeah. So, but it doesn't look like it.
But
It
it's
doesn't.
a low contact 37.
Yeah. He hasn't had a lot of wear and tear.
He's not as low contact as Floyd, but he has done some of that, and he's not a worn down, beaten up 37.
Yeah, a lot of fans like his prospects.
And he's a professional athlete, and he's a winner.
Discipline.
He is
he's not out doing crazy stuff like outside of all this.
Totally all-in winner.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, hard for me to bet that anything bad happens to Terence Crawford. whether against Israel Madrimov,
or are you going to say Canelo?
or even whether we get to the Canelo platform, it's still hard for me to say, oh, Crawford's going to lose. I haven't seen it.
Has anyone done that? Like what Crawford's attempting to do?
I can't remember.
Like moving up, 3 weight classes? Yeah, not off the top of my head.
Ray Leonard against Donnie Lalonde.
But, how many? That was 2, though, no?
Wasn't it 47 to 68?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's the same thing. As far as I understand, I could be wrong. But, this is a vague memory. I called the Leonard Lalonde fight, and I think that Ray had gone from 47 up to 68.
No,
and he got tagged.
He
got tagged, and he got hurt.
But he ended up closing the show, though, too.
That's right, yeah.
All right, Jim, as always, man, it was great catching up with you. Here's Fred again. We got to close out.
Jim Lampley co-hosts the exclusive viewer chat in real time through Saturday's Terence Crawford Israel Madrimov World Championship high-def live stream at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 5 p.m. Pacific Time, only on ppv.com.
All right, there's his plug-in.
Who is Jim Lampley? Go
guy.
to the chat and find out. ppv.com.
If you're a boxing fan and you don't know who Jim Lampley is, shame on you, really. Shame on you. Yeah, you're not a boxing fan. Hey, Jim, as always, man, a pleasure talking to you. Always enjoy these chats. Jim Lampley, Marcos Viegas here in Los Angeles. Thank you for watching us over here at Fight Up TV.